Yeah, it is good. It's funny. I read this book a long time ago, so I honestly wasn't that excited to read it because it was like, I've already read it before, but it definitely fell on me completely differently this time when I read it. Like a completely different translation of the book, from career to love to all kinds of things that when I was reading it, that I would just have to stop and think for a minute. So I really appreciated the book way more now, where I'm at now in the transition of my life now than I did when I read it before. So and I couldn't help, because Darren and I have had some conversations, because Darren recently made a career change. And so, I was thinking about Darren being a sheep shepherd. And then, and then, kind of, then I just, Darren's now in a crystal shop. So, just, the next thing for Darren, expanding his business or whatever. So, but the same thing for me, and I'll get into my takeaway, but again, moving from one business to another, I've had a little bit of an identity crisis, maybe a lot of an identity crisis. And, just basically, the book's premise was holding on to what you're comfortable with, what versus, what's your personal legend, and what do you really want to accomplish in this life. So it really fell on me really, really well. So I really liked it. I really appreciate the recommendation, Darren. And Rochelle, it's so good to see you like 3 months later. It's really nice to see you.
Oh, oh, well, there you go. You know he
I'm
loves
used
you.
to your humor, Davey. I'm okay with it. I'm good. I'm Cuban, man. You know that I get it. I can get whatever you want. After Fidel Castro, you can get whatever you want. So it's okay. Come throw out.
It's only love, Rochelle. It's only love. All right. Well, who wants to kick us off?
Yeah, I can jump in, Jay, after that, shepherd analogy. But no, I really like yeah, I mean, this thing lands, I think, pulls in a parable way a lot of the things we've talked about before. Just you have to stop and be like, it's not as obvious as some of the others. Obstacle is the way, where there's a very specific stoic lesson to apply. You're reading and it's like, oh, wait, hold on. Oh, I see what they're doing there. Yeah, okay. And there's just so many. I dog-eared this because this actually is not available on. At least I couldn't find it on Kindle. So try not to make this thing a mess with all my notes. I've got these little, dog ears down, and just the principle. There's just some really, really good nuggets that I think, to your point, Jay, apply in a lot of ways. Early on, I'll just kind of speak of it out of context and how it ties. We are afraid of losing what we have, whether it's our life, our possessions, or our property. But this fear evaporates when we understand that our life stories and the history of the world were written by the same hand. So that theme of, fear and what we're worried about, how it ties and how it limits you. I just think is really powerful. I can't remember where it is in the book, but very early on, and this is one of the ones that my wife had mentioned to me before I read it, was blessings that go unignored become a curse, or something along that way. But you look at everything else, and essentially you're not. Maybe it was the analogy of taking the spoon. The test of taking the spoon all around the palace, upstairs, downstairs, and you spilled the oil. Well, now you got to focus on the oil, and just the analogy there that it's always easy to look out in the distance. You're looking into the desert in this world without appreciating what you have. And then the way it ties into some of the law of attraction and The Secret and some of the other things that we've read. This is on page 118. When a person really desires something, all the universe conspires to help that person to realize his dream. And it's, I think that is the power of, we've talked about it, the power of focus, the power of attraction, the power of intent. And it's hard to, because of the way it's broken up in the story, to hone in on it exactly, but all these themes I'm just picking out as they tied to other books that we've read. And this is the one of the more recent ones, later in the little later in our reading that and then I'll be quiet because I know these are some probably pretty common nuggets. Tell your heart that the fear of suffering is worse than the suffering itself, and that no heart has ever suffered when it goes in search of its dreams, because every second the search is a second's encounter with God and with eternity. When I've truly been searching for my treasure, I've discovered things along the way that I never would have seen had I not the courage to try things that seemed impossible for a shepherd, for a new entrepreneur, for a new husband, for a new father, mother, whatever. So that to try, right? So I just think that is so powerful. And it takes, it doesn't always help. Some of those times you wake up and you got the pressure on your chest and you're like, I need to accomplish this, I need to do this. What about this? What about this? One, the fear is always worse than the suffering itself. You're creating something that hasn't happened yet. So why do that? And then, on the journey, you're going to discover things that you never would have seen if you hadn't gone through those challenges or hadn't been focused on that horizon. So I just really like you mentioned, Jay, it's a different read than we've done before, not quite as kind of prescriptive, but I think that's neat that it allows you to pull it out. Whoa, wait, what was that? Let me read that again. Oh man, that lands this way. So I can definitely see reading this 10 years ago and reading this 10 years from now, how those little parables would land differently. So it ties a lot of what we've read together nicely.
So I want to say something, Darren, and for everyone on here, I don't want you to go slow. If you have, I would not assume that they're all the same basic takeaways. What I just learned from you and what I've heard from you just reiterated some of the points that I really love, because I think, we haven't talked in 2 weeks, and I believe there's so much in this book. But I think there's just so much in this book based on individual people, where they are and experiences that they've gone through. So whatever you guys want to share, there's no rush, Darren. If you have more stuff, or anybody else, don't feel rushed through this conversation, because I think anything that anybody says in these conversations is going to help other people kind of digest it differently. Because the thing is maybe Raquel digested that differently where she's at in her life, and those omens that we don't pay attention to, or the omens in this book that we didn't pay attention to, that we now look back on our life and be like, that was why. Because I remember when I went through something in my life, I always was asking myself for 6 months, why me? In this book, there was a reason why me, because when I came out the other side, I literally, now I know, needed to be punched in the face to take my life to the next level, to go to the next level. I needed that, even though when you're in it, you're like, what the hell is going on? I live my life this way. I'm doing this. I've done everything right. And all of a sudden this is happening to me, Mr. Victim over here. But the planet or the universe is doing this so that I learn, and then I can carry that message on and teach other people that, it's not happening to you, it's happening for you. So I just wanted to say that, Darren, those were all really, really great takeaways. And I definitely, each individual, I know a lot of you, like Rochelle and Greg, and as I'm reading these books, I'm always wondering how certain things, the things that I know about you, or conversations that I've had with Rochelle's husband, how is this falling on them? Or are we just reading it so fast we're missing it? Because I think this book is, even though I read it fast, I definitely had those moments, Darren, where I was like, how do you take the crystal thing, and he turned that into a success and got his sheep back, and just that story, the way it was written. And I think the fascinating thing to me is that this book didn't sell any copies for 20 years, and he didn't give up on it. So I think that's a huge omen in itself, talking about getting, now this is a very, very famous, there's not, I've asked people, have you read The Alchemist? Oh yeah, I read that book. Oh yeah, I read that book. So it went from that to this, and his storytelling is awesome. Although I don't know if you guys read the prologue of the next book. It's very similar to this book, in the description of the next book that he wrote. It's very along the same lines.
Well, I just want to say, I like this book, especially after we've been doing a lot of more like mechanical books, like reading. This one's more story-like, especially a good one right before Life Force, which is like the third biggest book on my shelf. And I'm like, and I know what we're gonna get into with Life Force, but it was nice to have something more like before we get into that big one. But one of my biggest things, and just kind of like in general, so he goes to find his treasure, right? And then comes to find out the treasure is like under the tree that he was like right outside his house or whatever, right? So to me, it made me think like, okay, sometimes everything you need or everything you want, everything you're looking for, it's like right there. It's right where you're at. You're just not ready for it yet. You have to go do your thing. You have to go through your good things. He found the love of his life. He got beat up. He got robbed. He hated his job with the crystal guy. Like, you have to go through all your things and to find your way back home. It always comes back to the whole a full circle thing. And then for him to realize like, okay, he learned how to listen to himself. He learned that everything that's coming to his life or out of his life all has to deal with like a higher power, right? Which most people, they either don't believe it or not, but there's always something out there that's like working in conjunction to set you up where you need to be. So that was my favorite thing, that everything he needed, everything he wanted was right there at home. He just needed to find himself, become experienced, to get it, to get everything back. The other thing was the alchemists, right? Like the alchemists are people like what? They turn metals into golds. They push you, well, not you, but this alchemist, he pushed him and turned him into what he was supposed to be. The same way they're changing the metals into different things and getting the metals to become, to fulfill their purpose as a metal, right? To be the gold or whatever. That's what he did for Santiago. He was like, okay, let me give Santiago these tools as advice so he can become the person he needs to be. So he can go back and reclaim the treasure that's always been there. But now he's ready for it. Now he can walk into his purpose all fully developed. And he gets love of his life too. So win for everyone.
Who else? Jump in there, Rochelle. I definitely want to hear your perspective on this.
I was on muting myself. Okay, I have so many things to say, but the first thing is I want to be very honest. I'm struggling with my reading time, with my commitment in the reading club. And I think this is the best way to put it in front of me. I don't know why, but the last weeks, everything happened on Wednesday at 1 or maybe a little time before. I have my dog he's very sick. Right now, minutes ago, I was dealing with him again. He's very sick, he's too old. And I don't know why, but every time on Wednesday and at night, I have been in a hurry. And this book, I said, this is not you're gonna come up in the front and you're gonna do what you have to do. This is your commitment. Remember, where do you come from? You're not gonna go back. So keep going, keep driving. I stick to a simple phrase: keep driving, keep going, keep doing the things you know you have to do. So every time at night, even though it was maybe 11, because I was working in something else, anytime I was reading. And it took me to the moment that he got robbed, and he was sitting in that plaza thinking, oh my God, why did I do this? I was a shepherd, I was happy, I was traveling. And then when he took the 2 stones, he felt relieved. He knew that the old man was with him still. So he said, okay, let me change and let me see the good things. I'm in a new place, new people, I can learn a new language. And that hit me in my face because, of course, we're going to do that again. That the negative thoughts, you think they're winning. They're in your head the whole time. And sometimes, because of the hurry you're living, whatever reason, you forget what you have to do. You forget to put the positive and see what are you doing. So I said, okay, Rochelle, do the right thing, do what you have to do. Remember, where are you at right now? Since the beginning of the book, that it says is your mission on earth. And I kept remembering that. What is my mission on earth? I have clear what is my mission right now when I'm 40 years old. That is easy, it is not. And reading the book is, everything is a process and you need to live it. How long he was in the crystal store? 11 months. He had to, he learned. That was the process to keep going to the next step. But we people, human beings, we want everything right now and the way we want it. And I keep forgetting that most of the time. So I need to remember it. And the best way to do it for me right now was my dog, something is happening. This is not going to do it again. Before, listen, enemy, you did it with me, but right now it's not going to work. So I'm going to sit right there. I'm going to clean it after. It doesn't matter. So I'm going to do what I have to do. I'm going to share what I have learned. These books, I love it. I love this book. I have read it before, like Jay said, but for me, this is, of course, I'm in a new situation. It's completely different. Okay. Also, everything that the crystal owner, the owner from the crystal store said, that impressed me. That he said, "I'm already used to the way things are." Like he was used to the lie. He didn't want to go like to get what he know because. And I said, "Oh my God, I have been there so many times that I don't like changes. Not right now, but I used to be that person that changes. Oh no, I'm used to this. Why do I have to do something else? Why do I have to get or earn some new habits? No, this is me. Why?" And that was like, oh my God, we have been there so many times. And for me, and also when it says, never stop dreaming, follow the omens. And looking back to my life, I have seen those omens so many times, but I haven't been paying attention to it. And for the last 2 years, I have had to pay attention to the omens because it's the only way to be an entrepreneur. It's the only way. If not, you're not gonna go through. Before, maybe you can say, "Oh, my boss did this wrong," or maybe my sister, but right now it's just you and you. And so right now I'm looking for the omens all the time. Okay. So this is more, I think, most of it.
That's awesome, Michelle. I'm so glad that you're in this book club and you're reading stuff along with me and Jimena, and I think it's awesome for you to be on this journey with us.
I'm sorry to hear about your doggy, your fur baby too, because I know that's a hard thing. I could feel it in your voice when you were saying it. So it's even bigger. So praying for you and your family too.
All right, guys. So nice seeing Greg, Jay, everybody that I've talked to before. And to Rachel's point, Rochelle, I'm sorry about your dog as well. I lost my cat a few months ago, so I know the pain in that. Something that caught my attention since the beginning was we sometimes when we have a blessing or we have something that comes to us as a form of a gift or a destiny, we kind of push it away. And Santiago did that with the king when he first approached them. And he was just asking him, "Hey, what are you reading? Can I have some wine?" And he was kind of being dry with him and just pushing him off. And I think we do that. I think we all do that, whether it's at work, with our relationship, with our family. Somebody tries to approach you, trying to give you something or trying to be there for you, and you just push them away. I don't care what you have to say. My ego and my pride is more important. I'm not gonna care about what you're trying to do for me. So that kind of hit me in a way where, sometimes you don't know what's going on. And it kind of ties in with Darren, approaching me again and telling me, "Hey, we're gonna, read The Alchemist. And I'm like, oh, I've heard about it. Yeah, I want to do it. And now I'm here with you guys, and you never know what you're going through. So I think that always helps. We all have our issues, but that hit me because it goes tight with a lot of things that I've gone through, at work, family. I remember when I first started here, my 5-day training. I remember Greg helped me a lot. There was a point with Darren and John that I was like, man, I can't do this. I think I'm gonna quit. And February 3rd, I made 2 years. So it kind of shows you that you kind of have to push through and keep going and keep going, and not push away from the blessings that life is trying to give you. So that kind of like ties in with a lot of things. And I think that's what impacted me the most, at the beginning with the king approaching him. He was kind of pushing him away, but that's something that, kind of hit me, and I learned from it.
Nice. Thanks for sharing, Juan.
That's awesome.
Who else? Raquel.
Go. I'll go.
Okay, cool.
Hello, everyone. So, yes, really loving this book. There was a couple of things that stood out for me, and it was mostly the part about where he talks about with the owner of the store, the merchant, the crystal merchant, when he was saying how he didn't want to change anything and why ask more out of life. So when I read that last sentence there in that paragraph, it kind of like hit me a little bit, because I always felt like I was being complacent, and that sense of just being okay with whatever I have. And going back to before that, when the king told him, you could dream bigger, you have this mission in life, you are meant for more, that it's where I'm like in that stage of my life right now. So I feel like if I would have read this 10 years ago or years ago, I wouldn't have taken that into any consideration, because I've always felt like, okay, why ask more? I have so much, why ask for more? And it's just being in that sense of complacency that, if you have the basic, you're fine. And not necessarily. Like, there's so much out there that you can go for. There's so much that, there's so many dreams. There's so much potential that we all have within us if we just take time to read the omens, see the omens, do the work, look further beyond, be part of bigger things than us. So I really, really loved that part of the book. I haven't been further along. Like, I'm not near the 150. I am taking my time with this one too. That was one of the things that really struck me in the book. It's like, you can ask for more, and it's okay. It's okay to ask for more.
Hey there, can you guys hear me?
Perfect.
Sorry I was late. Crazy stuff going on around here today. But this book, I missed what some of you said, but I was pleasantly surprised early on. And I was like, I found myself even talking about it to other people. Like, I was like, this book I'm reading, and it's all about, this and this and this. And, normally nobody cares, but, it was telling a story. And so I felt like I could, regurgitate the story for them. But, and I even found myself like, this is the first time y'all been, it's been in the back of my head that I'm like writing in the margin or whatever. Haven't gotten that far yet, but I did take my pen out and like underline some things that he said. And then I like went into the first part of the book and like wrote them down. So I was like, okay, well, at least I have something I can talk about and I can reference, because I was like, normally I'm just reading to read, it's like, I never read. So this has been a learning process. So I felt like, man, I'm growing. Look at me.
That's awesome.
But I was all gung ho, and I got to part 2, and I started in on part 2, and I got through that, through a little bit of it. And then it was like, all of a sudden I hit this wall, and like the last 50 to 75 pages have been blah. I'm like, I get it. And I guess I saw, okay, he's going to find his treasure or whatever. I don't know what it was, but it's like, I'm having trouble picking it up and, having trouble sleeping. So I finished this whole book this morning at 3:30 this morning, but, I did enjoy it, oddly enough. I mean, I totally have liked the last two books that we've done. Very energizing, very motivating. This guy's very calm, but even as calm, because I told y'all before, I like listen to it and read it. And so I thought, oh no, his voice is very calming, while he was reading it to me. And I thought I'm going to go to sleep, but I was very into it up until that last little bit. And then this last little bit, I was like, why is it not, and that's when he was like seeing the thieves and, or the actual desert stuff that was going on. But, one of the passages that I found myself doing was like on page 18, it talks about, that was what made traveling appealing to him. He always made new friends. He didn't need to spend all of his time with them. When someone sees the same people every day, as has happened with him at the seminary, they wind up becoming a part of the person's life. And then they want the person to change. If someone isn't what others want them to be, the others become angry. Everyone seems to have a clear idea of how other people should lead their lives, but none about his or her own. And I was like, dude, I mean, I've always said the more you know about people, the less you like them or whatever. Not necessarily, but you know what I mean? It's like you start to find out the ins and outs and you're like, oh, but I mean, I'm glad it was a short read in the aspect of, because the last part was dragging for me, but it is something that now that I've like listened to you guys, I'm like, okay, maybe I should pick it back up when life isn't so crazy and see if I can pick out something else from it. So it was very, like I said, the first part of it, I was whizzing right through and like, I'd finish my pages and go, oh no, I want to keep reading. What else is going on? What else is going on? But the end, I was like, ugh. And so that was my take.
Awesome, Angela. Well, I mean, that's the great thing about books. Everyone, it falls on people differently based on where they are in their life, so that's what I love about this book club. I wanted to share what I love about Chris Merrick is that when he can't come, the last time he could come, he shared his takeaways and I didn't share them with you guys. So I want to share them with you today because he said he's in a meeting and he couldn't come. So he said, please share this for me. Very good read. Love the analogies littered throughout. Reminded me a lot of 12 Pillars, so many good lines, but the following was what stuck with me the most. Tell your heart that the fear of suffering is worse than the suffering itself, and that no heart has ever suffered when it goes in search of its dreams, because every second of the search is a second encounter with God and with eternity. Page 134. This line summed up the whole book for me and is a reminder to enjoy the entire journey of life. So great takeaway. So I would tell you one of my biggest takeaways in this book was Fatima. And why Fatima was one of my biggest takeaways is because being in helping my wife in this business, it's kind of the opposite of Fatima. Most men, when their wife is starting a business or in business, kind of squelches them and doesn't really support them and doesn't really get behind them and allow them to go follow their dream and build something for themselves. So for me, Fatima was the men in our business that don't really support their spouse, or men in all businesses that don't really support their wife and say, hey, go flourish, go do what you want to do. I'm always going to be here. I'm always going to be beside your side. And I just thought, that is really not a common thing today for even women to be like that, to say, listen, I'm by your side, I'm your rock, whatever you decide to do, you need to follow your personal legend. I'm here to support that. So that was the biggest takeaway for me, is that he had that confidence that the love of his life, someone that he had all these emotions to. And because, when people get caught in love or stuck in love or whatever, they kind of forget everything around them and then just get stuck in that with that person, which is not healthy. because then you kind of forget about your dreams individually. So that was my biggest takeaway, that I would love for our girls to kind of listen and share that story with their men, because that empowerment that Fatima gave him to go to the pyramids and try to find his treasure. And what he realized is his treasure was that journey. And his treasure, like Lola said, was right where he was at. But, going to look for that treasure was more valuable. And then the second takeaway that I liked was the very end. And that was the fact that he was a man of his word, and the gypsy that he said he would give 10% to, he still gave 10% of his treasure, which he could have just said, you know what, I forgot about that. But that was way back, in his journey, and he still delivered on what he promised, because that's just how people should be, right? We shouldn't need written contracts for people to do what they say they're going to do. If you say you're going to do something, and I had this conversation with someone the other day, they said, you know what, it was just a verbal, like, I didn't think it was going to be this good. Like, why should I keep paying them? And I'm like, because you told them that you would, because it got better, that's even more reason, because, that karma you put in the universe. And there's a couple of things that, I want to read to you guys that really impacted me. The boy didn't know what a person's personal legend was. God, I can't read. Let me put my glasses on because I can't see. It's what you have always wanted to accomplish. Everyone, when they are young, knows what their personal legend is. At the point in their lives, everything is clear and everything is possible. They are not afraid to dream and to yearn for everything that they would like to see happen to them in their lives. But as time passes, a mysterious force begins to convince them that it will be impossible for them to even realize their personal legend. That's just something we have to think about, because for whatever reason, all the experience we have in our life leads us to believe that we can't do our personal legend, versus leads us to believe that we can do anything. And that's because I think the people that we surround ourselves with. And then he said, when I had my sheep, I was happy. I made those around me happy. People saw me coming and welcomed me. He thought, but now I'm sad and alone. I'm going to become bitter and distrustful of people because one person betrayed me. I'm going to hate those who have found their treasure because I never found mine. And I'm going to hold on to what little I have because I'm too insignificant to conquer the world. And when I read that, those are the voices in your head. Like when something happens to you that you just kind of like this record that plays over and over and over, and you create this resentment in your head because something happened to me, instead of happening for me, right? Just the way that you process it. And then he says, you must always know what it is that you want. I know the things I should be able to accomplish, and I don't want to do so. So those two statements, you must know always what you want. And then the contradiction in our head is, I know the things that I want to accomplish, but I know I don't want to do what it takes to accomplish them. So that was another one. And then one that Darren said I love. Let me see. And men always live their lives based on the future. So true. We're always thinking about what's next. What can I do next? What's the next experience that I'm going to have? Instead of, the secret is here in the present. If you pay attention to the present, you can surely improve. I mean, we're so far into the future most of the time that we can't even really see what the present moment is, because we're just wanting to get out of the present and get into the future. But if we just live in the moment that we are. So I personally love this book, like I said, because it helped me through understanding what my next mission is. But even further than that, like, it made me really think about what is my personal legend. Not what's tomorrow or what's next year, but what is my legend going to be on this planet, and what am I going to do, and what do I need to do every single day to actually accomplish that? And, you know, like you said, Rochelle, like, we want immediate results, right? And when we're going after our personal legend, if we're not getting those immediate results, you know, we get frustrated, we get distracted, we get, you know, to a point of where we start having that conversation of, am I ever going to be able to do it? And this time that you're going through, with everything, with your dog, with your business, with the event that you went to, with Monet, with, all the things that you're going to, it's just all a journey for a culmination of what you really want to accomplish. And that, I think we just have to know, what is that personal legend? What do I want to accomplish? And then be dead set on accomplishing it. Like, be dead set on finding your treasure, no matter what it is. If you got to go through war, if you got to go, if you got to face death, whatever, all the analogies that he had in the book, whatever you have to do, if you have to leave the love of your life to be able to go accomplish that, then how bad do you want your personal legend? How bad do you want to leave a debt in this universe? So I loved it. I actually, it was such an easy read. I will tell you, I started reading Life Force, and I'm already 100 pages in to the book, because it's just really, really interesting to me. I think it might be because I'm getting older, and a lot of stuff that he is talking about in the book, with life extension and, pains and things hurting and, all of that. Like, I'm living some of those things right now, and all this new science and doctors. It's very, very interesting to me. It is a very different read, you guys. I want to tell you that. But what I want to set you up for is this: everything that we've read is business. One of the comments that he makes in the book is, so many people focus on how much money they want, and they're always focused on the success that they want in their life. But when they're sick, the only thing they're focused on is getting better. That's it. And this book has a lot to do with that, right? Like, you would pay any amount of money to get better, but you're, doing bad things to your health or not taking care of yourself, so it's a very, 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 very good book. I hope you guys enjoy it, but it's different. It's not business, but I want you to see it as being the CEO of your life and of your health. I see Greg's got his hand up. Very, very nice move there, Greg. Is that your way of telling me to shut the hell up?
Well, I was just going to ask, were you done yet before we moved on to the next book? Yeah. So, so I actually listened to this book. I told Jay I've been doing the audiobook thing. Because I listen while I walk. So I'm trying to combine my habits that help. And so I had actually finished it before we even finished Gap Selling, because it is fascinating to listen to. So it's narrated by Jeremy Irons. And I don't know if you know Jeremy Irons, but imagine all the characters having completely different voices and very dramatically different voices. It was awesome because it was much more visual than it would have been. I think I might have ended up where Angela was if I was just reading it, because it was kind of like, are we in the future and the past, or where are we now? I can't remember. But when you hear, it's almost like a movie, like you're listening to a movie. So there were, I picked up a few things differently because of where I am in the journey. Never read this book before. So the first thing about that 10% you were talking about, Jay, to the gypsy, to me, I connected that back to tithing, because the gypsy didn't ask for a certain amount of money. The gypsy asked for 10%. And in the faith journey, that's a very interesting challenge, because people always say, well, I'll give 10% when I get more money. Well, that's not the point. The point is not you have to have more money before you give 10%. It's 10%. So even if it had been a dime, if he gave her a penny, it still would have been 10%, and he would have still been able to honor it without it being any more painful to him. So that's one of the things that kind of rang in my head. The other thing was, and I don't remember it by pages, but I think the king, he went to go find some item or something for the king. And when he got back, the king said, did you notice all those other little things? And he realized that he didn't notice any of the little things on the way to the big thing. And how often, that happens, that we're so focused on the finish line, you don't stop to smell the flowers is the analogy, that kind of the metaphor that comes to mind with that there's so much beauty on the way that we forget about because we're so focused on the finish line. But the living, it's like the folks say at a lot of memorial services, it's not the beginning date, it's not the end date, it's the dash between where you live. And so remembering that, that dash part. There was a dramatic, and it was probably because it was read so dramatically, where he met alchemist the first time, and he was on this great big horse, and this sword was right at his throat, and it drew a drop of blood. And, you know, it, because sometimes when you actually find part of what you're looking for, it is that scary to you. I mean, he was frozen, he couldn't move, he was afraid to breathe, he wanted to run away, he couldn't run away. To Juan's point, sometimes that's the place where you do a U-turn, because it's like, I know I said I wanted to be here and talk to this guy, but I'm not sure this is the guy. But as soon as he embraced who he was talking to, the alchemist withdrew the sword, spoke more softly, became more, it's like right on the other side of that fear thing is where the glory is found. The crystal shop owner, the takeaway I got from that, and it's happened with a few different people, because, you know, he had lived his life, he's where he wanted to be, he didn't want to go anywhere else. And so two things out of that jumped me. One is it kind of reminded the shepherd that he didn't want to be that guy. He didn't want to get stuck. He didn't want to kind of, you know, not live his life. But the other part is, don't try to make people go who aren't ready to go. And I think we spend I'll raise my own hand. I think I've spent too much time in my life trying to get people to go places that they don't want to go. And to Rochelle's point, and then even judge them, you know, well, if their walk is not my walk, you know, and maybe their personal legend is found where they are right now. It doesn't feel that way to me because of who I am, but you can invite them, but if they're not ready to go, don't stay there all day trying to convince them, just go. Angela reminded me of a t-shirt my wife has about the people thing, that she has a t-shirt that says, I used to be a people person and then people messed it up for me. When you were talking about that, it's a great t-shirt. It is absolutely a great t-shirt. The Become the Wind challenge, when he said, I'm going to become, he can become the wind and destroy all the armies. And then he was talking to the alchemist. He's like, so how do I do that? He said, I don't know, I guess you better figure it out. And he goes up and he talks to the wind and talks to the sun and has these conversations. You know, he had no idea, but he made this big promise, and they were probably going to get killed if he didn't make it work. But all of a sudden, he just went there and he just had those conversations really with himself, you know, that were symbolized through the, you know, the sun and the wind, and they thought they had all the answers. And it's just, I don't know, it's just, that was almost like a romantic thing for me to read that piece. I don't know if that makes any sense whatsoever, but it was just really cool. And the last thing is, you know, the line, and I don't have it because I don't have the book, I don't have it highlighted, but that point about the universe conspires to get you to where you want to go. I think the universe also does the same thing, the course corrects you. Because I have in my life taken a couple of exit ramps that looked really good at the time, but as soon as I took those exit ramps, it was like the universe started going, no. And all of a sudden I was walking on glass when I was walking on soft grass a few moments ago, because I think the universe does that for us as well. I think it sends us, but I think it also reminds us to come back. And to some degree, this path almost was for me, not just him having to go through all these things, but the universe constantly bending him back to that tree where everything was found in the first place. Because he looked all over the world for something, to Lola's point, that was right there in front of him. And, you know, thank goodness the tree was still there, because there are life stories where we are bent all the way back to that place where we should have been. And that thing that was there is no longer there. And so we wasted all that time. So that's kind of how it hit me because of where I am in my life journey a little bit, but I enjoyed it. And I probably listened to it on 2 walks. I was kind of disappointed when it ended. I was like, wait, that's it? But it's a lot of things to think about, to kind of recalibrate my thinking about some stuff. So I thought it was good. I enjoyed it. You might want to listen to it, Angela. It's better. I think it might be better listening than reading, just this particular one. So
I just want to add one more
That's
thing since you landed it, Greg, and this is the only time we're talking about this book. Was the last thing that I'd highlighted. What you still need to know is, let me close this. What you still need to know is, before a dream is realized, the soul of the world tests everything that was learned along the way. It does this not because it's evil, but so that we can, in addition to realizing our dreams, master the lessons we've learned as we move towards that dream. That's the point at which most people give up. It's the point at which, as we say in the language of the desert, one dies of thirst just when the palm trees have appeared on the horizon. I mean, that's like a very literal, visual way to explain a lot of the stuff we've talked about. You know, it's the dawn is darkest, right? Or the night is darkest right before the dawn. And then this other thing he kind of ties it out with, I think, just puts a bow on it really well. Every search begins with beginner's luck, and every search ends with the victors being severely tested. And that is just because you start, hey, from business, you start something new. Hey, I jump into something. Oh man, a little success here. All right, got this thing going. This is how things are going. Bam, bam. Okay, hold up. No, that wasn't in the playbook. Oh, where'd that come from? Hold it. But it just illustrates that, hey, you know, they talk about whether it's, we've heard the term accidental excellence. And again, this could be, you have a kid, you're learning to parent. Oh man, I got them sleeping through the night. All right, they're alive. That's good. Oh, what's this teenage years I'm experiencing now? Oh, all right. So it just applies in so many different ways that, right, you're not going to get through anything that's worth having without being tested. And I need to pretty much print that, put it above where I sleep, where I brush my teeth, because I think it's a really, really fantastic reminder.
Yeah, and I, you know, Darren, I think it's so crazy, like the way that it fell on Greg, right? Like him taking an exit ramp, maybe he shouldn't have, maybe he should have stayed a shepherd, you know, and not taken that exit ramp. Or, you know, you're saying maybe I got to take this exit ramp and see where it takes me. Like it just depends on where you're at, you know, like, you know, what Greg's passions are. He took an exit ramp and it's like, I'm not sure that's my passion. But what you have to do to wrap this all in a bow is listen to your heart, right? Because your heart's always going to tell you, you know, what the right thing is. I think what we do is we don't listen to that. You know, we listen to what other people are saying. We listen to, you know, but when you listen to your heart, you know, hopefully you're going to follow the right thing. But, you know, even if you don't, there's always still a lesson in that, you know? So that's what I love about this book is I don't really think there's a wrong answer. Every answer, every decision you make is right. You just got to take something from it and then get better and say, okay, I'm not going to do that again. Next time I'm going to follow my heart. I'm not going to follow the money. I'm not going to follow, you know, whatever it is that you decided to follow. So again, you know, everyone is at a different place in their life, you know, so this book, you know, because listening to Greg, I could be a little confused if I listened to Greg exactly based on where I'm at in my life, right? Because I could be thinking, oh crap, did I take the exit ramp when I shouldn't have? But Greg's coming from a place of passion and heart, maybe wherever he's at in his life. So again, I think this book is very individualized. And I think that's why it's so unique because it falls on you where you are, where your experiences are, and where you're going. So again, I love that you shared that perspective, Greg, because it's, you know, for me, I didn't get that perspective. I'm kind of thankful for all the exit ramps I've taken because it's gotten me to this place where I want to go next, where, you know, maybe, you know, a little bit more definitively, you know, you got off that exit ramp and you're hitting the guardrail because you're like, oh shit, you know, like I need to get back on.
Yeah.
I need to get back on this
Well,
road.
but you know what? It's really interesting that you say that, Jay, because what you said triggered it. Because you don't really know until you've taken the exit ramp that it's not the ramp. So it's not like you wouldn't. It's a reminder to where you would be, not necessarily, and you wouldn't, and maybe it reignites the passion. I mean, maybe it's not the same road.
It makes you appreciate your passion that you were doing, or, you know, what you were doing before. And maybe that's going to reignite even that passion even further to take it to another level.
Yeah. Well, the other thing I was going to say is that I think how old you are also matters, because if you read this when you're 30 or 40, then you see more time in front of you to course correct. If you are older like I am, you're like, I don't need to be wasting any effing time that is not connected directly to my heart. So you see things in a not a finite way, but you're like, okay, everything needs to be exactly this. I do not need to get distracted by anything except exactly what is in my heart, because I know that what's in front of me is shorter than what's behind me, just to make it, not to be, gross or anything about it or heavy about it, but it's the truth. So, I don't want to be that guy that when someone asks me, after they hand me my teeth and put them back in my mouth, what am I missing? What did I miss in life? I want that to be a very short list. I don't want to say, well, you know what? I had it and then I forgot it, and doggone it, when I found it again, I had a year left. That's what my nightmare scenario is. And if I can avoid that, then I'm all good. Just sit me in a rocking chair with a smoothie and just watch the sunset. That's what I'm talking about. So I don't know where all that last part came from, but I'm just saying.
Must be on top of mind, just saying. All right, guys. So the reason that I talked about Life Force is I know it's a different read, and there's a lot of information in there, but I really feel like if you kind of digest it and jump into it, it's different. But I just see it as a business for my body versus a business for my business. Just a business for my mind and all of that. It is a big book. It is. My wife was like, yeah, I want to order that book. And I told her how many pages that she was. She's like, can you just tell me what it's about? So she was like, no, I'm 780 pages. I'm not, nah, just, if you could just give me a report
on audio books, it's like 13 hours. I was like, what? Are you kidding me? That's when I found out. I was like, okay, this is different. So
yeah. But I think at the end of it, the thing is, Tony's writing this because he had, you guys will learn, he had some issues that he never told anybody about. And, he describes like jumping on stage and working 13 hours a day. I mean, basically every day that he does an event, he's running 2.5 marathons. That's how many calories he's burning in a 13-hour event that he's doing. So like the toll that it's taken on his body is insane. But it's just interesting, the medicine and the technology that's out there that actually can extend people's lives 30 years that, used to cost $100,000 now costs $600. So it's a really interesting book that, like, I'm so glad that I'm reading it, because I think I'm at a stage of my life where I need to start paying attention to these things and things that can prevent strokes and heart attacks and all these different things, and technology to find cancer early on, that you can actually eliminate cancer. And so it's a very, very interesting book, and I'm glad you guys wanted to read it. So we'll see you guys next week and look forward to it. Thank you guys so much for showing up, and we'll see you soon.